The least attractive first-use strategy is manipulation of risk. And basically the argument here is that if you get into a crisis and you think it's essential to use nuclear weapons, let's say you believe your survival is at stake, you launch a handful of nuclear weapons, 2, 3, maybe 4 nuclear weapons into a remote area remote piece of territory on the other side or on the ally of the other side. And the basic aim here is to throw both sides out on the slippery slope to oblivion. We all know that nuclear escalation is a subject that is really hard to get your hands around. Actually, if you look at the literature on escalation, forget the nuclear escalation, the literature on escalation in international relations is really quite terrible. Just don't have a good literature. We just don't have a really good handle on escalation. And when you talk about nuclear escalation, we just don't know much at all, because thankfully we've never had a nuclear war. Well, that threat of escalation, married to the fact that you're just using a handful of nuclear weapons, right, the theory goes, will cause the other side, the state that has not used nuclear weapons, that did not initiate nuclear weapons, to change its behavior. You will, in effect, coerce that other state into changing its behavior, because that other state will understand that you're out there on the slippery slope to oblivion, and to put it in Thomas Schelling's terms, the last clear chance to avoid nuclear Armageddon rests with them. And even if they don't understand that at first, and they use 1 or 2 or 3 nuclear weapons of their own, it will quickly become apparent to both sides that you're on the slippery slope. And what will happen is that you will reach some sort of agreement. What you're doing here is you're basically escalating for the purpose of trying to get the other side to de-escalate. That's the basic name of the game here, right? You're not using military weapons for nuclear advantage. When you talk about a splendid first strike, you're talking about taking out the other side's nuclear arsenal. When you talk about damage limitation, you're talking about taking out the other side's arsenal and limiting damage. It has similarities with the whole notion of sort of winning a military war, winning a victory in a military sense. That's not what's going on here. Here you're just manipulating risk. I believe that this is never the strategy of choice for a great power. They don't like manipulation of risk. If a great power is forced to adopt the manipulation of risk strategy, it will nevertheless go to great lengths to see if it can find a way to develop a damage limitation capability, and even better, to develop a first strike capability. You'd much rather have first strike capability than damage limitation capability than a manipulation of risk strategy. But sometimes you're thrown back to having a manipulation of risk strategy as the strategy of first choice, because you don't have those other 2 strategies. But nevertheless, I believe great powers are never satisfied with manipulation of risk alone.